My last thing is just like on the flip side of it, because I was thinking of it still while we were talking as the like listening to the coach perspective. It's easy. This is maybe like a all the coaches that are with me right now, like that are listening, and they're like, yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, this is a check for the coaches too, because it's like, are you explaining this to the kid that's not going to get it? Are you at least trying to do your job to let them know this is what it's going to be when you come in here? Because I think that's a gap on the coaching side where they can improve. Not that they owe it to anyone, but just that it's a way to get buy-in so that the kid isn't poopy pants or thinking that they're a shitty player. Or because I remember that, man, like if I was on the fourth line, like my first year junior, and I didn't play for 8 minutes, that's where my brain would go right away. I'd either be like frustrated and blaming, like I'm better than you and I should be playing instead of you, or I would go to I'm no good. And now,
just before I forget, one thing that you probably should do is look deep into your soul. No, really, look deep into your soul and sit there instead of having poopy pants and instead of saying I'm better, the comparison game and all that shit. Maybe the question is, what can I do to impact this game? What can I do to impact the coach's mindset about me? What can I do? So if you're 16 years old and you're a skilled guy or you're whatever, you're a guy on the team, like there might be something that you can do to garner everyone's attention. It might be throwing a big hit, right? If you've never thrown a big hit before, maybe that, or going around and bumping 2-3 guys per shift and then coming off exhausted, that you might not have touched the puck or whatever as a young guy, but you did one thing. Maybe it is being a rat, going out there and hacking somebody a little bit, or when the whistle goes, getting inside the crease and taking a swing or something at the goalie or a couple guys to get some attention, to get some, maybe you draw a penalty. You've done something for your team. And if you add some, maybe it's a block shot, maybe it's, I don't know, something that you can measure, or that the coach and everyone can see that you're like, no, I'm going to do something outside of my vanillaism, right? Because if you continue to have vanilla, throw a chocolate chip in there, man.
So I agree, but for a lot of kids, I was one of them. Sometimes it takes that, like somebody saying that to me. Like I always use that example, like when Billy Bowler said that to me for the first time. I'm in there. He brought me in for a meeting finally after I was poopy pants for 12 games. And he's like, hey man, do something or I'm taking you out. That was it. Like that was the conversation. I know you think you're good and skilled and all that shit, but you're useless right now. Find something else to do or I have to take you out. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. And that just, no one ever said that information to me before. So my point of that is that whole spiel you just went on. If you're a coach listening to this podcast and you agreed with everything we said up to this point, you can provide that input to guys on your team where you don't have to. It's not something that coaches have to do, especially at higher levels. But if you have that conversation with a kid that's a fourth liner or a kid that's in and out of the lineup or whatever, and you say, hey, ask yourself the question, what can you do to make me change my mind as the coach? What can you do to make me want to put you in? What are some of those things you can do? That might be very helpful for a kid that's never heard that before, And so there's a little bit of this, like just as a send off that I want to leave with the coaches, is that maybe try to give the kid a little bit of help, because I think about this all the time when I hear coaches talk about, like this kid's not doing this and this kid's shitty and this kid's shitty. And I even think about it for myself coaching. If I'm ever thinking that about a player, I always try to come back to, hey man, you weren't that good either, about myself, because I wasn't that good. That's why I'm not playing the NHL right now. So when I don't want to set an unreasonable expectation on kids, because I remember being the kid and not knowing the information and struggling to get the puck out and turning it over in the middle and not wanting to block a shot and being the kid that was blaming and thinking I should be playing over this guy. And I remember being all of that. So if you're now a coach, which I am, and I'm thinking about these other kids that I'm now coaching, that they shouldn't be doing those things that I'm doing. It's like, yeah, but you did all those things too. So maybe have the conversation to try to get them through that shit instead of just leaving them to think that because you're now Joe coach and you don't owe that to them or whatever. Because I remember how impactful that was for me to hear from my
Yeah.
coach. You know,
Yeah. So I'll finish. I'll finish on your finish. So I agree. I really do think, like, for me, I agree that in an ideal world, a coach should be able to spend time with every player and say, um, to go over their game, right? They should, 100%. And it would be nice. It would be a better world if a kid came in and they had some expectations, and then you gave them some love and care about how they're playing, what they should do to improve their game. Yes, and I think it's great in an ideal world. But and I think you're going to agree with me to a certain point here as a coach. Ready? Sometimes it just gets tiring. And I'm not saying to do the job, but if I'm constantly at some point,
how many
Eric,
times do I got to say it? Yeah, man.
Eric, at some point,
Yeah.
do you want it or not? Because and I think to be fair to a lot of coaches, not because I think I agree with it totally, it's your job, but at the junior pro level, I think at some point it's just like, you know what? I've been doing this for 12, 15, 20, 30 years. I've seen this song and dance before. The kids that want to make it are going to make it, and the kids that don't. And I don't really have a lot of time to actually sort this out in my little pea brain anymore. And that's, I think, where that comes across a lot, because there are kids, several of them, and I would say I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say more often than not, most kids are not actually in. I want to be a player. That's just the truth. But I think sometimes sorting it out, you might find a diamond in the rough there. But I think, to your point, it would be nice if you can get things laid out. It'd be nice if you can follow it and have a little bit of patience and a little bit of time to go over and say, you're doing good, just do this.
I do, but I agree fully, like to a point.
Yeah, to a point.
Right?
Yeah.
Like once you lay it out the first time,
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe a second time.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then it's like, I wouldn't say that applies it'd be nice at the pro level or even higher level junior, but like for guys that are pro now, like you should know what your job is, what you're supposed to do while you're there, or you should be asking the question because you're an adult now. You know, you should be figuring it out if no one's telling you. But I'm more curating that for the younger cohort, let's say, like if you can lay it out once or twice. But after that, like I totally agree. Like it's like, hey man, that's enough. Like you ain't getting it, you ain't listening, and now you can come to me if you have a question, and you're gonna get what you get. And I think that's fair at a certain point. But yeah, I think because it was interesting hearing the different perspectives from the different coaches today when we were talking about it. So I thought it's a timely topic because this is about the time of the season where that stuff starts to creep in, where guys are trying to figure out their roles and where they fit in the lineup and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a good perspective for parents too. Is just remember that you're in a different ball game now, man.
Last point on that.
Yeah,
I always got something. But the other thing is that what happens with the head is where a lot of people go with this is they look at, okay, this isn't working, I need another option. Yeah. So like that's trade. I'm going to go somewhere else. Trade me. It's going to be better somewhere else. It's like, are you sure? Right. Are you sure? Because it might not be. I use a term I can't use that anymore. Anyways, it might not be. Yeah, but it might not be the team. It might be you, or maybe you're just not ready. So just always really, really, really take a look at